Correct Connect Africa Foundation. My name is Rita Asemuta and I have here with me
Diala Francis.
Every year in February, the Correct Connect Africa Foundation commemorates and celebrates the life and works of Cheikh Anta Diop. We highlight his immense contribution to science and the African Renaissance. This year, we shall focus our attention on his political thoughts. The central project of the political reflection of Cheikh Anta Diop is identifying and establishing the basic postulate for the creation of an African federal state. Cheikh Anta Diop therefore proposed 5 conditions of sovereignty for the realization of this project. They are as follows. 1. The geopolitical and strategic conditions of African sovereignty. In line with these conditions, there are 5 points. First point, the guarantee of military sovereignty by creating powerful armies equipped with the state-of-art equipment. Second point, promote a humanism of vigilance in our bilateral and international cooperation. Third point, avoid at all costs depending on others more than they depend on us. Fourth point, fight against the heteronomy of consciousness, which consists of an elite receiving from the outside values, norms, interests, and priorities that govern the political and intellectual action. Do you think all this attainable?
In Africa, well, yes. Africa firstly needs to have a state-of-the-art standing army which protects the interest of Africa as a whole.
Okay.
And then we also need to stop depending on Europe the way we actually depend on them.
Okay, speaking on dependency, don't you think we need to depend on others to actually achieve what we want?
No, actually, the dependence of Africa on Europe is actually so much.
Oh.
It's so much. Moving on to the second point, the socio-political conditions for African sovereignty. Firstly, creating a collective national consciousness, adapting to the circumstances and the renewal of endogenous values. Second point, conceiving the African Renaissance as a paradigm of modernity in Africa. Third point, promoting the ability of African political elites to take historical initiatives. So here, I actually feel Diop hits so much on national consciousness.
Oh yes, that can be overemphasized because Diop wants us to have a common mindset as Africans, irrespective of where we are or what we are made to believe. He also wants us to have commitment, loyalty, and affection towards Africa, our roots, where we come from. So that's what Diop is trying to say here. Moving over to the third point, we have the economic conditions of African sovereignty given by Cheikh Anta Diop. The first point is the creation of an exchange currency adapted to the African economy. Second point, the implementation of an industrial policy of internal profitability backed by an African domestic market. Third point, the development of African resources according to a logic of internal profitability. Fourth point, the design of an optimum geographical framework for the development of African resources. Fifth point, the implementation of a rational industrialization plan. Sixth point, the development of our raw materials in correlation with the exploitation of energy sources. And the final point, the implementation of a dynamic to conquer the African domestic market. Do you think all these are attainable?
I actually feel they are attainable because hardly can any nation thrive without economic buoyancy. It's not possible. So we as Africans need to look inwards and harness our God-given raw materials which we actually have and which we have actually been exploited of because we've been exploited so much.
Okay, I think this can come in through our political elites.
Yes.
Because they can take on these historical initiatives to make this work.
So moving on to the fourth point, the educational and cultural condition for African sovereignty. Firstly, promoting national languages as languages of instruction and government in Africa. Secondly, forging an African cultural consciousness based on historical continuity dating back to ancient Egypt. Thirdly, forge an educational consciousness based on African cultural unity with Pharaonic Egypt as a reference matrix. Fourthly, train an African elite capable of taking charge of the historical destiny of the African peoples in a perspective of autonomy of norms, values, interests, and priorities that should govern its activities in the context of an international society, still largely dominated by the conflict of national interest. 5. Promote an education that enables young Africans to develop a keen awareness of the cultural and socio-political stakes of knowledge. So here, Diop actually hits so much on education and the languages we speak.
Okay, speaking of languages, Diop wants us to have a common language in order to promote like African unity.
But we actually have Swahili, which is the most spoken language in Africa.
Yes, we have Swahili, but I don't know how to speak Swahili.
You can as well learn it.
Okay. Looking at the final condition of sovereignty, according to Diop, we talked about the scientific conditions for African sovereignty, where he told us about promoting scientific research of excellence in the field of technical sciences, in the field of exact sciences, and in the field of humanities and social sciences. Do you think this is actually in existence?
Okay, it's actually laughable because we do not have enough young researchers who are willing to actually make these researches, these Afrocentric researches. Most of them they make Eurocentric researches.
Okay.
So we actually don't have enough researchers.
Okay, so what do you think is causing this and what do you think can be done?
Okay, we actually have poor funding, and I feel the government does not encourage the ones that are even ready to even make this research. Okay. The government should actually encourage them and try to fund them more.
Exactly.
In conclusion, for Cheikh Anta Diop, these indispensable conditions for the foundation of the African federal state are essentially aimed at building a Pan-African political consciousness capable of determining itself, capable of resisting the heteronomy of the values or principles that govern it. A consciousness capable, in short, of creating the material and immaterial conditions of its historical destiny. Diop's work therefore remains significant to the study of Africa, as it not only provides wider documentation of African history and culture, but goes further to decolonize this history from the dominant colonial paradigm. In the words of famous Nigerian artist Burna Boy, he said, "Remember, you were African before you became anything else." That's it from us. Happy Diop Legacy Day 2023.
I'm Rita Semuta.
I'm Francis Diala.
Bye.
Bye.